welcome. I'm Jillian Moss-Backman, and this is Change Already, Your Future, Your Choice. I'm just like all revved up. I don't know if it's the show outside or the beautiful weather. It seems like every couple of months I address the weather, but I can't help it because it's just been such gorgeous fall days out here in the Midwest. And it's days like these that I take my computer outside and I write until the battery goes dead. But it's hard to stay focused because so many people are out and about now because they know winter's coming at some point soon. But it's so fun to watch people out there because you never know what's going to cross your path. And then you think you're never going to top yourself with something you see, and then the next time you do it, something else or somebody interesting passes you by and you go, that's going to be the one that sticks in my mind. So the next time. Last week's show was a little sad and depressing, and I didn't mean to bring everybody down, but as I said last week, I'm going to keep on talking about these kind of events until we get this stuff under control, whatever that means. So last week's show was on that tormented man who went on that shooting rampage several weeks ago at the Washington, D.C. Navy Yard. And it had been reported that I talked about in the news that this killer suffered from what people are labeling hearing voices in his head, and talks about low frequency and all this other kind of stuff, and that it was extremely destructive and dangerous, and this is what caused the man to ultimately pull the trigger and kill all those people on that fateful day a couple weeks ago. On the show that I talked about last week, I really wanted us to separate the difference between what spiritual teachers talk about and label hearing that inner soul voice in your mind's eye versus what they're talking about with this man, and he described in his own sick mind as hearing voices from microwaves and walls or whatever. I think it's extremely important that we're able to separate out what the killer is identifying in his own mind's eye in a sick way that he was versus what spiritual teachers, and in fact I lump myself in that category because I catch myself using that same catchphrase a lot, which is listen to that inner voice. Now, reasonable people, as we know, and we found out in the last couple of weeks, there were some other mental issues going on with this young man. But I really talked about taking a moment to instruct ourselves to continue to listen to that inner soul voice, even though all of these reporters and the media people are trying to connect the dots that this is the main reason the young man did those tragic things a couple of weeks ago. Let's keep it all in perspective, people. You know, there's a great big gap between what they're talking about and listening to our inner soul messages and that inner soul voice versus that. So you want to go back and listen to that show at Blog Talk Radio and look under my page, of course, Change Already with Jillian. Or you can go to my website at jillianmossbackman.com. And in the last couple weeks, it's now up on iTunes. And I believe I labeled that show something, listen to your inner voices or something like that. I just really want to make sure that we isolate this as a lone experience and not clump it together with the rest of us that have a healthy relationship with that soul inner voice that we're talking about on a regular basis versus the dark illusionary messages that this young man was receiving a source that's not from that inside soul love place that we talk about all the time. Next, I want to go on and talk about this intuition and messages that I refer to all the time. The bigger question becomes, where are all those messages that we talk about on a regular basis and encourage everyone to follow through and listen to it? We want to look at the bigger picture and assimilate, where are these things coming from and what do we label as our own intuition? It's so strange because they come to us, these messages, and the thoughts that we come from are so different and unique from one person to another, but there's a few generalities that we've been able to figure out how and what this intuition that we talk about and that intuitive empathic thought that's going on inside of our gut feelings that we talk about. A lot of people really dismiss those intuitive thoughts because they don't understand, nor do they have the capacity to articulate some of those kind of things. But today I want to use the half hour we have left to talk about intuition and exactly the diversity that it comes from. Yesterday, I did a little experiment on my Facebook page and Twitter. I asked each one of you to take 2 or 3 words that describe your personal intuition. I was surprised. The response was really wonderful. A lot of people reached out. Some people kind of broke the rules and used more than 2 or 3 words. I know it was kind of a hard task to narrow it down to 3 words. But I wanted to see what you guys thought of out there and how you describe your own personal intuition. I want to talk about, after this short break, some of the sweetest responses I got. I was overwhelmed by both men and women on what they see as their own intuitive thought and how people describe it so differently and unique unto themselves. I want to talk about, after the break, a specific category. I want to address the idea that men look at intuition and regard it and label it a completely different way than us women. Now, I can't talk for men, but I can certainly be observant and pay attention to how they put it out in the world. And, of course, I'm a woman, so I can easily describe my own intuitive thoughts. And I, too, tried to do the task at hand, which was put 2 or 3 words to what I thought my own personal intuition looks like, feels like, and how I would describe it to somebody else. So while we take this short break, I want those of you that didn't participate in that small experiment on Facebook and Twitter, think about this question. If you had to answer it to yourself, how many 2 or 3 words would you describe your own personal intuition? After the break, I want to talk about the differences between men and women and the cusp of where we're going next in overall intuitive empathic thought. So we'll be right back after that break. Think about that question. Write it down if you need to. We'll talk about it after the break.